formally designated as the mortality-inhibiting environment for mice. Informally referred to as mouse heaven, this experimental habitat was conceived and constructed by biologist John Calhoun in the year 1968 at the National Institute of Mental Health in Maryland. The habitat assumed the form of a substantial enclosure, specifically a 4.5-foot cubic structure meticulously engineered to cater to the multifaceted needs of the resident mice population. It encompassed an abundant and consistent supply of nourishment and hydration, an optimal climate, an ample repository of paper materials conducive to the construction of comfortable nests, and 256 discrete living quarters connected via a network of mesh tubing securely affixed to the enclosure's walls. Furthermore, Calhoun conducted rigorous health screening of the mice to preclude the introduction of diseases. Shielded from natural predators and other environmental concerns, the habitat theoretically offered an environment where mice could lead remarkably extended lives, bereft of adversities. Nevertheless, it is paramount to underscore that this experiment represented the 25th iteration in a series of comparable undertakings led by John Calhoun. These prior endeavors illuminated the precipitous descent from an idyllic setting to one characterized by discord and distress among the mouse population. John Calhoun's upbringing unfolded in Tennessee, where he was raised by a high school principal and an artist. In his formative years, he developed a profound interest in ornithology. Following the completion of his doctorate in zoology, he embarked on a professional journey, joining the Rodent Ecology project in Baltimore in 1946. The project's overarching objective centered on the eradication of rodent pests in urban environments. However, the project achieved only limited success, in part due to the challenge of identifying the precise facets of rodent behavior, lifestyle, or biology to target for effective control. To address this conundrum, Calhoun initiated his initial utopian experiment featuring Norway rats situated within the woodland behind his domicile. This venture was established to facilitate the longitudinal monitoring of rodents, thereby elucidating the determinants of their population dynamics. Over the course of time, Calhoun's fascination with rodent behavior evolved into an independent area of inquiry. His initiatives evolved into the construction of progressively intricate and meticulously controlled environments. Importantly, Calhoun envisaged the prospect of studying urban design principles by examining rodent behavior as a precursor to extrapolating findings to human populations. Calhoun's most renowned utopian experiment, denoted as the 25th in the series, commenced in July of 1968, with the introduction of 8 albino mice into the aforementioned 4.5-foot cubic enclosure. After an initial acclimatization period, the first generation of offspring emerged 3.5 months later. Subsequently, the population exhibited a recurring pattern of doubling every 55 days. Although this robust growth eventually abated, the population continued to burgeon, culminating in its zenith at 2,200 mice during the 19th month. However, this rapid proliferation camouflaged the emergence of significant complications. In their natural habitat, juvenile mice face a high risk of mortality due to predation, disease, and environmental rigors, a stark contrast to the scenario observed within the confines of mouse utopia. The conspicuous reduction in juvenile mortality led to an overabundance of young mice, thereby engendering multifaceted challenges. Rodents inherently adopt social hierarchies characterized by dominant alpha males presiding over groups of females. The establishment of alpha status hinges on confrontational physical contest, encompassing wrestling and biting, with vanquished individuals typically seeking refuge in distant territories. In the context of mouse utopia, however, defeated mice, colloquially referred to as dropouts by Calhoun, found themselves unable to escape, precipitating their accumulation in the central region of the enclosure. These dropouts bore the brunt of injuries and scarring, periodically instigating inexplicable large-scale violent conflicts, manifesting as ferocious free-for-alls replete with biting and clawing, devoid of apparent purpose. These episodes constituted instances of unwarranted brutality. It is noteworthy that in preceding utopian experiments involving rats, certain dropouts resorted to cannibalism. Alpha males were not immune to difficulties either. These individuals harbored their harems in private chambers, which necessitated vigilant defense against aspiring challengers. Given the substantial number of surviving adult mice, an incessant cycle of competition for alpha status unfolded, culminating in exhaustion among incumbent alphas. Some relinquish their territorial defense altogether. As a consequence, nesting areas housing nursing females frequently faced incursions by unestablished males. While the maternal instincts prompted resistance, these engagements often resulted in detriment to the well-being of their offspring. Stressed mothers frequently expelled their pups prematurely from the nest, prior to the offspring's developmental readiness. In certain instances, maternal violence toward their own progeny was observed, or mothers abandoned their young while seeking refuge in different quarters, consigning their offspring to death by neglect. Subsequently, an array of aberrant behaviors emerged. Mice subjected to suboptimal rearing conditions or premature expulsion from the nest often failed to develop robust social bonds, impeding their ability to engage effectively in adult social interactions. Maladjusted female mice exhibited reclusive tendencies, isolating themselves within occupied chambers, an atypical behavior among mice. Conversely, maladjusted males devoted an inordinate amount of time to self-grooming, incessantly preening and licking themselves for hours on end, leading Calhoun to designate them as the beautiful ones. Remarkably, even though these males obsessively tended to their physical appearance, they displayed no proclivity for courtship or sexual activities. Of particular intrigue, Calhoun observed in earlier utopian experiments that such maladjusted behaviors exhibited a propensity for spreading among mice akin to contagion. He ascribed this phenomenon with the moniker the behavioral sink, the confluence of reduced sexual activity, which exerted a downward pressure on the birth rate and an inability to nurture offspring effectively, thereby precipitating heightened infant mortality, heralded the commencement of a precipitous decline in the population of Universe 25. By the 21st month, newborn offspring seldom survived beyond a few days, ultimately culminating in the cessation of new births. Seasoned mice endured for a duration, engaging in solitary lifestyles or obsessively tending to grooming activities. However, over time, they too succumbed to mortality. By the advent of spring in 1973, approximately 5 years subsequent to the initiation of the experiment, the population underwent a dramatic plummet from its zenith of 2200 to absolute extinction. What was once considered mouse heaven had transformed into a barren wasteland. Universe 25 concluded its experimental run half a century ago. Yet it remains a subject of enduring fascination, especially as a metaphor laden with somber implications for human society. John Calhoun actively encouraged such speculative extrapolations, articulating, "I shall largely speak of mice, but my thoughts are on man." As early as 1968, journalist Tom Wolfe titled an essay about New York a rotten Gotham, sliding down into the behavioral sink. Peculiarly, the prophesiers who have contemplated Universe 25 have yet to arrive at a consensus regarding its primary takeaway message. Environmentalists were the earliest group to express concern regarding Universe 25, notably coinciding with the publication of biologist Paul Ehrlich's The Population Bomb in the same year that the study departure from conventional rodent behavior. Some of the dropout rats displayed an innovative approach within Universe 25. Rather than engaging in the laborious task of gradually removing loose dirt from the tunnel, these rats opted to compact the dirt into a cohesive ball and then transported it out of the tunnel in a singular excursion. John Calhoun, animated by this ingenious adaptation, drew a parallel to the invention of the wheel by humankind. This phenomenon transpired due to the isolation of these rats from the primary group, rendering them oblivious to the dominant method of digging. When evaluated against the customary standards of rat behavior, this deviated pattern was evident. It also constituted a creative breakthrough. Consequently, Calhoun argued that under certain circumstances, social upheaval can propel creatures toward enhanced intelligence rather than diminishing it. Incidentally, following the collapse of Universe 25, Calhoun initiated the construction of novel utopian environments aimed at nurturing creative behavior among mice through the provision of both physical and mental stimulation. This research subsequently inspired a children's book titled Mrs. Frisbee and the Rats of Nim, named after Calhoun's workplace. In the book, a group of rats escapes from a colony designed to enhance their cognitive capabilities. Given the variegated interpretations of Universe 25, it begs the question of what overarching lesson can be gleaned from this experiment. John Calhoun's primary insight pertains to the concept of status. He observed that males who lost the contest for dominance within the confines of the experiment found themselves entrapped in subordinate, ignominious roles, bereft of meaningful societal roles or avenues for advancement. A parallel phenomenon applied to females when they were unable to nurture or rear their offspring adequately. Both segments of the population manifested symptoms of despondency and aggression, resulting in outward displays of hostility. In essence, Calhoun contended that, akin to mice, humans are social creatures necessitating meaningful social roles for personal fulfillment. Deprivation of such roles can engender hostility and confrontational behavior in both species. Nonetheless, even this interpretation appears to have limitations. Unlike mice, humans possess a multitude of avenues to discover meaning in life that extend beyond procreation or dominance within hierarchies. Moreover, while humans and mice share the designation of being social creatures, this superficial commonality obscures substantial differences. Critics of Calhoun's work posited that population density among humans, a quantitative measure, does not invariably correlate with feelings of psychological distress associated with crowding. In the words of a historian, through their intelligence, adaptability, and capacity to shape their environment, humans possessed the capability to cope with crowding in manners that mice inherently lack. In the ultimate analysis, Calhoun's work assumes the character of a Rorschach test, wherein individuals perceive what aligns with their preconceived notions. It is worth emphasizing that not all laboratory experiments, particularly those constructed as contrived microcosms like Universe 25, possess direct applicability to real-world scenarios. Consequently, it may be prudent to extract a metacognitive lesson from this inquiry: the recognition that the act of drawing definitive lessons itself can harbor inherent risks and complexities. Does the mouse Utopia experiments have any real reflection on today's human environment behavior? The mouse Utopia experiments conducted by John Calhoun have generated extensive discussion and interpretation, but their direct applicability to today's human environment and behavior remains a matter of debate and controversy. While some have drawn parallels between the findings of these experiments and certain aspects of human society, it's essential to approach these comparisons with caution and recognize the limitations, overcrowding, and social behavior. One of the key takeaways from Calhoun's experiments was the impact of overcrowding on social behavior. The experiments highlighted that in densely populated environments, both mice and, by extension, humans can experience increased stress, aggression, and social dysfunction. While there is evidence to suggest that overcrowding can have adverse effects on human behavior and mental health, it's important to acknowledge that humans have complex coping mechanisms, adaptability, and diverse ways of finding meaning and fulfillment in their lives. Human societies are not directly analogous to closed laboratory environments, and social dynamics are influenced by a myriad of factors. Meaningful social roles. Calhoun's work emphasized the importance of meaningful social roles in maintaining mental health and social harmony. It is suggested that when individuals lack such roles, they may become hostile or depressed. While this concept has some relevance to human society, it's a simplification of the complexities of human behavior and motivation. Humans can derive meaning and purpose from various aspects of life, including work, relationships, hobbies, and personal goals. Social isolation. The experiments also demonstrated the negative consequences of social isolation on both mice and humans. Loneliness and isolation can indeed have detrimental effects on mental health and well-being, a phenomenon that has received increasing attention in contemporary society, particularly in the context of the digital age. However, the extent and nature of these effects vary widely among individuals.